Hi, and welcome to episode 41 of the Give Me a Crown Knitting, Spinning and Bits and Pieces podcast. My name's Nina, also known as Give Me a Crown on Ravelry, Instagram, Pinterest, and it's also the name of my Etsy shop where I sell project bags and zipper pouches and various things. I'd like to say welcome back to any returning viewers and a big hello to new viewers, in particular the recent subscribers. There's been a bit of a jump in subscriber numbers on YouTube, which has been fantastic to see. I found out that I was mentioned on the Fiber Trek podcast, so thank you for making mention of my podcast and for checking me out. It is Sunday the 17th of July 2016 and it's a gorgeous sunny day. It's about 17 degrees, which I think is about 63 degrees Fahrenheit, and it feels like t-shirt weather pretty much once you step outside, so it's a nice change. I hope that everyone who has been off at the Australian Sheep and Wool show in Bendigo has had a brilliant time. I've been a little bit envious watching on Instagram at all the wonderful photographs of the festival and the stash enhancements that people have been acquiring over at Bendigo, so it looks like it was a fantastic festival, and hopefully next year I'll be able to make an appearance, and I'd love to check it out. So I have this week some knitting, a little bit of crochet, and some acquisitions. I don't have any spinning, but my acquisitions are spinning related. So first finished object, or only finished object, is my mustard and cable socks. So these ones are knit with Novita Seitsemänbellistä yarn, which I picked up in Finland, and it's a pattern or a kind of recipe that's been provided by somebody whose Instagram name is Ben Lavan, and I will put a link in the show notes, which can be found at givemeacrown.com/podcast, and it's also in my project page, but I haven't actually updated my project page yet to put all the final details of these socks in there. But it is a cabled sock, and I have ribbing on the back of the leg and then stockinette on the foot. These were my first 2 at a time socks, and I have to say it was a little bit of a chore, and I think the main reason being is that I was knitting at a fairly tight gauge. So I was using 3mm needles and knitting fairly tightly, especially with the cables, because the cables sort of occur very frequently. So I will definitely give 2 at a time socks another go, but I think I will try it on some stockinette socks. So that's what the cable looks like, and it goes all the way down towards the toe, and then I changed into stockinette for the toe. So for these I was using Knit Pro Nova interchangeables, so I've just got these tips that I put on my Knit Pro Symphony cables, and one of the problems that I had was that these have got very sharp points, not as sharp as the higher sharps, but still pretty sharp points, so that when I was doing the cables I kept poking myself in the finger as I was trying to wrangle the stitches. So next time I do some cable knitting, I don't think I'll use quite such sharp knitting needles. What else? These haven't been blocked yet because I just finished them up yesterday, and they are a little bit tight to put on because of the amount of cabling that's in there, but they fit okay and I'm looking forward to wearing them. So that's that one. I have a couple of works in progress, the first of which is in my Girl So Sheepy bag, which I love. So this project is my Minim aerosol, which is designed by Meg Gadsby, and it's at this stage. So this week I have thought to put some needle protectors, point protectors on my needles so that I don't drop any stitches, but I haven't changed my cable yet, so it is pretty squashed up on the cable. and I am almost finished with the second chart. And this pattern does have written instructions as well, but I'm just using the charts for the time being because I find it easy enough to follow. So it's hard to show it, but it will look spectacular once it's actually off the needles. So there's some various lacy things going on, and then there's one more chart to go after I finish the second one. And I've been sort of going through every single stitch marker that I have. I've got various little ones that I've made up in here, but yeah, I'm definitely going to run out, and I think I'm going to be using some yarn scraps as stitch markers, so check out those next week. So this yarn is the Circus Tonic Handmade Revelry Sock yarn in the House Crow colourway. Yep, and it's wonderful. So that is continuing. I've also been working on a crochet doily. So it's still growing. I had a look at the magazine, the Crochet Monthly magazine that I'm taking this out of, and it says that it's going to be 27 centimeters across, which is about, I can't think off the top of my head. Is that not about 10 inches across? So this is definitely a fair bit larger based on the cotton that I'm using, but I've got a few more rounds to go, and then I'll give it a soak and see how it works up. I have a feeling that there's a bit of an error in the pattern because there's one very loose bit in here, but I'm hesitant to actually rip back and adjust because I've already gone so much further. I had been looking at it basically on the next row thinking that it didn't look right, but I think once I soak it and pin it out, I think it'll be okay. And that's probably the next door neighbour's rooster that you can hear crowing. I have also been working on my, it's a new project. So these are some vanilla socks. They're in one of my Snap project bags. So these are in my Etsy shop. And I had an interesting comment from someone who is using one of these recently, and she said that it's great for commuter knitting. So sitting on the bus and being able to pop the yarn ball in there and have the yarn coming out from in between the snaps, so that you don't end up with a yarn ball rolling down the aisle of the bus or the train. So this sock I cast on last night, and I haven't actually really looked at this yarn ball. I was just, I don't know, after getting the mustard and cable socks off the needles, I was just really itching to knit a vanilla sock, and I just grabbed some yarn that had been sitting on the shelf behind me. So this is Mondial, looks like an Italian yarn, Chow Superwash, 75% merino wool, 25% polyamide, and 420 meters. And it's self-striping yarn, or self-patterning yarn, that should be coming up a little bit like that. So I think I picked this up, I must have picked it up in Finland, and I remember I picked it up because I thought that it would be self-patterning, and also the blues in there just made me think of my mum because she wears a lot of blues. So these socks will be for my mum, and I'm using my higher sharps, and this is where I'm up to. So I've knit, I think it was 15 rounds of ribbing, 2x2 ribbing, and then now I'm on to the legs. So haven't got very far yet, but it's got some interesting colours in there, but I think they'll make for some nice fingering weight socks. So I'm trying to knit a little bit looser. I've realised that my tension on my knitting recently has been fairly tight, so I'm deliberately trying to knit a little bit looser on these, which, with the higher sharps being so slippery, I'm a little bit worried about dropping my stitches off my needles when I'm not looking, so I think I might need to make up a little DPN cozy for these. I don't have a 15-inch DPN cozy, so I'll probably make one of those up this week, just so that it has something to sit inside and I'm not going to worry about losing my stitches. So that's that one. Oh, and I cast on 64 stitches, whereas I normally do 56 or 60 I've been doing recently, but I've been realizing that they're a little bit tight, so I've done 64 for this and trying to knit a bit looser so that I would get a slightly roomier sock. I like tight socks myself, but I think my mum prefers them a little bit looser. So that's that one. And I think that's it for my projects at the moment. I did get some good suggestions after last week's episode that my corridale could be used for hats and mittens, and hats, mittens, cowls, various things, and it was suggested that I hold the corridale up to my skin for a little while and see how it feels. I decided to put the skein around my neck. I wore that around the house for about an hour and it didn't bother me whatsoever, so I think it should be okay. I might actually pop it inside my hat and just see if my forehead has any kind of reaction to it, because I think that it's going to be a nice yarn for a rustic looking hat. So that will probably be cast on soon. I'm a little bit worried if it's going to get too hot too soon here, but looking at the long range forecast, we should be getting back down to lower temperatures in the next week or so. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to still need some beanies before the winter's out. I have been to the library this week and I've popped something on top of my library books. So last week I had been to one branch of the Central West Libraries to pick up some books about knitting, and this week I went to another branch and picked up some spinning books. So one is the Ashford Book of Spinning. So this is an older book. I'll see if it has a date. Well, it's first been borrowed in 1987. I love how these library books, you can see sort of how frequently books have been borrowed. The last time this one was borrowed was in 2005. Oh, 2008. It doesn't have my particular one, so maybe they stopped using the stamps at some point. But anyway, so this book was published in 1986, and I haven't had a chance to look at it too much yet, but it has all sorts of information about spinning and plying and looking after your Ashford wheel and bulky spinning and measuring yarn and what have you. So that will be a good read. I also picked up The Intentional Spinner. So this is a more recent book. This one is from 2009, and I picked it up because it has coloured pictures. I like coloured pictures, and it has a lot of different types of techniques for different types of spinning. So when you're trying to get different types of results in your yarns, so there's some, which way am I showing it? That way. The different types of yarn results, but I haven't read that one either yet, so I will be looking over them over the next couple of weeks. I have had some acquisitions, so this morning it is now this afternoon. This morning I went to pick up my new supplies for my spinning wheel, so I'm very, very excited about them. I haven't yet had a chance to play with them. So this is my new baby. So this is an Ashford Jumbo Flyer and a bobbin with the sliding hooks so that you can pinch them, I think, and move them up. Maybe they need to be that way. Anyway, I'm sure I'll figure it out once I actually look at it. So this, I think I need to give these a bit of a what's the word? To put some oil on it. So I've got some citrus oil. I know that some people wax them and lacquer them, but I have a feeling citrus oil will be enough because I've used that on my hand carters and they came up a treat. So I'll have a bit of a read and figure out what to do with it. But this will now hold 100 grams of yarn, which is 50 grams more than what my current flyer does. So it means that I can spin up a whole braid onto here and it's going to be amazing. So I'll also be able to do some more fancy types of yarn because it has a larger orifice, and then there are little attachments to put in place if I'm spinning lighter yarn. The other exciting thing is that it has the different ratios. So my current flyer doesn't have any ratios, so here I'll be able to choose whether I'm wanting it to spin faster or slower. So that will be fun to play around with. I also picked up 3 bobbins, and they're in the other room, but I also picked up a Lazy Kate. So on here I can fit 3 jumbo bobbins and then I can ply from that. So it's going to be handy because at the moment I use a cardboard box with knitting needles in it to hold my bobbins, and I think it will sort of work a little bit easier by having them on here. I can also store the bobbins on here as I'm waiting to ply them, and I'm going to try to hook up some kind of tensioning system around the bobbins if it needs it. I'm not sure if it will, but I know that I had the option of getting a tensioned Lazy Kate, but I went for the untensioned one because I think it gives me more flexibility to then play around with tensioning it, although maybe I could have got a tensioned one and then taken the tensioning off, but it's going to be fun. I'm treating them so carefully because they're brand new, so that's very exciting, and yeah, I'm looking forward to playing with those once I get this edited and on the way up to YouTube. I also received my prize from the Yarnder Woman podcast Opposites Knit Along. So, oops, upside down. Melinda has got these beautiful cards saying happy crafting, and her podcast is amazing if you don't already watch it. She sent me this Aboriginal print postcard, which is beautiful, so that's going to go onto my notice board. There's some note paper and envelopes, so I'll pop those in to, when I'm sending some special things out in the future. And there was this very cute pouch with a little fox on it, so I'll have to find out something that I can store in there that's extra special. That's very cute. And she also sent me some minis. So I've left her note in the other room, so if you want to know what any of these colours are, let me know. I love this orange, very, very vibrant, and there's purple in there as well, so I'm looking forward to adding that to my blanket and seeing how it knits up. So that's those, and I think that's it for my acquisitions. The rest of this podcast will just be a little bit of chatter. But if you're not interested, then thank you very much for watching. I think next week will probably be a slightly longer episode again, as I'll have experimented with my new flyer and bobbins and all that fun stuff. So there'll be a fair bit of spinning next week. As for chatter, there have been a lot of sheep and lambs in the nearby paddocks recently. It seems like lambs are popping out all over the place, so they have this tendency to just cry, kind of like babies. It's a little bit sort of worrying when you hear it. It sounds so sad and desperate as they're calling out for their mums, but they're very cute, and I've been trying to coax them nearer to the fence, but they don't seem to want to know me. But I managed to get a little bit of footage of the sheep, so I'll pop that in at the end of the episode. And speaking of sheep, I am looking at sort of what some of the wool and fibre festivals are that are coming up nearer to me, seeing as I couldn't go to Bendigo. But the Buroa, I don't know how to pronounce it, Buroa Irish Wool Fest is on October the 2nd. I've been trying to find out a little bit of detail about that. I'd be interested to know if anyone has actually been there before. It's the 20th year that they're having the Wool Fest, and it's near Young, if you know where that is in New South Wales, and they have a running of the sheep. So rather than running of the bulls, they have running of the sheep, where the sheep go running down the main road, which sounds interesting. I've only seen photos, but I think there's video on YouTube, so not entirely sure how I feel about sheep running on a road chasing people, but it's something that they do. But I'd be interested to know if there are a lot of fibre and yarny sellers out there, and then it might pop into my calendar as something to go and check out. During the week, I was trying to capture the sound of the local sheep at night, because I'm trying to keep myself entertained, and it's just something that I thought might be fun, because the lambs sort of cry more at night, I guess because it's dark and they can't see, so they're calling out for their mums. So I was outside trying to capture the sound. Haven't actually checked back on that video, so I don't know if it worked, but I'll pop it in at the end if it did work. But as I was outside filming in the dark, there was some noise near me, and I kind of got a bit scared, walked backwards towards the back door, and there was some more rustling, and I thought, I've got to be brave. I turned on the light on my phone to sort of see what was going on. Couldn't see anything, so I sort of slowly crept around the corner of the house, and I found a little animal. I'll pop in a photo, and you'll just have to excuse the fact that there's a cleaning liquid bottle right next to it, because it had just been left outside and it had obviously bumped its head against it as it went running in between the aircon unit and the house. So I'll pop in the photo here. So that is the backside of an echidna, and echidnas are these spiky creatures, perhaps a bit like giant hedgehogs, and they're super cute, but they get scared obviously very easily. So me just walking around in the yard, it had sort of gotten freaked out and thought it was going into a burrow when it went and stuck its head in between the house and the aircon unit. So poor little thing. I felt bad for having sort of freaked it out, but I did sort of try to take a photo with a flash, because it was cute. So I then left it alone, gave up on my recording, and went inside, and then I went back and checked on it about 20 minutes later, and it had gone, so at least it wasn't stuck there. But it was very cute, and just kind of exciting to be able to see an echidna has been wandering around in the backyard. I do wonder what creatures are around here. I see, sadly, roadkill on the sides of the road, and there are wombats and kangaroos and foxes around here, so there could be all sorts of animals in the backyard having a party when I'm inside. So it was fun to see something. I have also been looking over my 2016 yarn goals, and there's lots and lots of things that are still on my list. So I might next week have a few new projects which are looking at some of those yarn goals, and I have been meeting quite a lot of my yarn goals, and they can be found on my Ravelry profile page, and I've been marking them off as I go. So if you're interested to know what I'm trying to achieve this year, then go and check that out. And lastly, I might be shifting my recording day to Monday. It seems like Sunday is a day when there can be quite a fair bit of things happening in the countryside out here, so markets and things. So I think that it might make more sense for me to switch it back to Monday, like I used to record, because then I can work in between doing the recording and editing and uploading and what have you. So if you don't hear from me next Sunday, then don't panic. There will be an episode most likely on the Monday, but I will still keep this to a weekly podcast, and because it's always fun to share what I've been working on and to hear back from the community and hear your thoughts on what I've been making. So I think with that I will wrap up. I want to get playing with my spinning wheel, and I have to read the instructions on that citrus oil to figure out how long I'm meant to leave it sitting before I actually use it, so hopefully it's not long. I'm tempted to use it without actually having prepped it, but I realise that I should probably do the correct things first, but I'll read the instructions and see what they say. So I will sign off. Pop by the Ravelry group. There is a say hello thread in there if you want to join the group and feel like introducing yourself, which by no means do you have to do. There's also everyday chatter and a spinning thread at the moment, and we'll have a knit along again soon. Thank you, and I hope you're having fun. I hope that you're crafting and making all sorts of amazing things, and I'll see you soon.